Welcome back, everyone, to another second stimulus package and second stimulus check update. Today is Saturday, November 28th, and in this video, what I want to do is, a lot of people have been commenting, asking down below in the comments about these Georgia runoff races that I mentioned in at least the last several stimulus package updates, and I want to clarify why those are so important and crucial, and why it could really determine whether or not you get a sizable stimulus check and a stimulus package, and it can also be decisive in what's included in the next stimulus legislation. The reason for the confusion is because many people thought it was over on election night, or at least election week, when we were so eagerly waiting for the results of Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump. But as you know, there were many down ballot races as well. There was many races in the Senate and the House. What we saw was the Democrats did maintain control of the House, although Republicans picked up a few more seats. And that was unexpected. We were expecting a blue wave, as the analysts and experts, so-called pundits, were saying. But it did not happen. The Democrats barely maintained control of the House. And what we saw was basically the Republicans also maintained control of the Senate so far. So what transpired on election night in Georgia were these two Republican senators. They're the incumbent senators, and they make up that Republican majority. And what happened is they did not reach their threshold in order to be declared the winner of their race in Georgia. In the state of Georgia, for a candidate to be declared the winner, they have to get a majority or more than 50% of the total vote, which did not happen. Neither incumbent Republican senator reached that threshold. They did not get the majority of votes. Neither of the Georgia candidates got that many votes, and so now there's a second election held, or a runoff race, to do it again. It's essentially the same process one more time, and the two candidates that qualify to run against each other are the two candidates that got the most votes. So in this case, what we're going to be seeing in January, that's when the runoff is, what we're going to be seeing is Senator Kelly Loeffler, the incumbent Republican, and Democratic challenger Raphael Warnock. They're going to face off again in January. And then incumbent Senator David Perdue is also going to be running off against Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff in the new year. Now, one of these races is going to be taking place, well, it's going to transpire on January 5th. So you'll be sure, you best believe I'll be covering it on this channel. This is your one-stop shop. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that big red button, the subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, hit the notification bell as well. That way you're notified every single time I do make a new video. And by the way, side note, if you have been enjoying my videos, if you have been enjoying my content, getting value out of them, just go ahead and smash the like button for me. I would greatly appreciate that. Just help with that YouTube algorithm. YouTube will actually increase the video and push it out to even more people. So if you just go ahead and hit that like button, I would greatly appreciate that as well. Sitting President Trump has also been vocal about the election and these races. He just said yesterday, quote, "No, the 2020 election was a total scam. We won by a lot and will hopefully turn over the fraudulent result. But we must get out and help David and Kelly, two great people. Otherwise, we are playing right into the hands of some very sick people. I will be in Georgia on Saturday, presumably to support both of the senators and get people out to vote, particularly his supporters and Republicans." Now, what's naturally going to happen is you're not going to have as much of a turnout or as many people vote on January 5th as they did on Election Day. It was hard enough to get so many people out, specifically minorities and people that don't usually vote, perhaps people that were disconcerted and disenchanted, even felt disenfranchised by the system and didn't like either candidate. So many different reasons and variables. And so you're not going to see as much of a turnout, which could potentially help and aid the incumbents win, and they'll be able to keep control of the Senate. Yes, Georgia did go blue. It did go Biden for the first time in years and years. However, with not as much of a turnout, that's not going to help the Democrats. They would have to get just as much, even maybe more of a turnout to absolutely make sure that they could win these two Georgia runoff races. But the crux of this video was, why is this so important? Why is this so vital and crucial for either party to try to win these races? Why are they fighting so hard for just these two Senate races? Before we examine that, let's just cover a perfect world, an ideal scenario. An ideal scenario would be that Mitch McConnell, who, as we know, has been blocking any large, robust stimulus measure. He wants to go more for a targeted, narrow bill. $500 billion is what he's calling for right now. Does not even mention stimulus checks. So in a perfect world, a utopia, Mitch McConnell would give in and say, okay, yes, it's time to give out stimulus checks to every American. I'm going to do a big package. I'm going to do a very comprehensive package. It's going to go to so many Americans, and so many Americans are going to qualify for these stimulus checks. Well, it's not going to happen. It's not going to ever happen. McConnell's feeling even less motivated after the election to pass a omnibus stimulus package. He wants to see something super targeted, super narrow, more focused on small business loans and trying to inject stimulus to specifically help keep the economy afloat as opposed to people. In his narrow, targeted bill, it does not even mention the idea of a stimulus check or any direct payment to Americans. So here's what's at stake. And remember, in order to pass some legislation, especially a sweeping legislation like a stimulus package, you need a majority of votes. You need the majority. So that means if you have a majority in the Senate, in this case, the Republicans before the election had a majority, they had a Republican majority, meaning almost anything they want passed, they could have gotten passed. The Democrats couldn't. So in order for the Democrats to get something passed, they would either have to have a majority or get Republicans on board, but that's not going to occur either. So either party, in order to get what they want and get it in their favor, they need that majority, right? They need the majority of the Senate. These two are going to declare what is the majority. So here's why and the two possible scenarios. Number one, if the Republicans do get these incumbents reelected, which is totally possible because you're not going to have as much of a turnout, the Republicans will maintain the majority, and we're back to where we started. We're back to square one, where it's going to be really hard for the Senate and the U.S. government to pass any sort of legislation that's robust and could help millions of Americans and small businesses, even with Biden in the White House, because it's going to be up to McConnell and the Republicans. If the Democrats were to take these two seats, guess what's going to happen? It's actually going to be a 50-50 tie. We're going to have a split Senate right down the middle. You have a half Republican, half Democrat. So how is that going to help if you need a majority? Here's why. The Constitution actually grants, if you have a 50-50 tie for any voted legislation, that who decides it? The Vice President. So that in this case will be Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. That's right, you heard that correctly. Kamala Harris is a very pivotal role in the next piece of legislation. She will ultimately be the deciding factor in what your next stimulus check, if any, looks like. So arguably, these two races are more important than the presidential election itself. Remember, the White House, Trump, they offered $1.9 trillion, but their own Republican majority Senate declined. So not only when it comes to stimulus, but rather any piece of legislation that would come out of the Biden administration that has to be passed through Congress and can't be done through executive order would ultimately be decided by this new Senate. And so these races are extremely vital. If you do live in Georgia, make sure you do go out and vote. Very important to exercise your right. If you're watching this from Georgia, we welcome you aboard. Let us know down below in the comments. So that is why this race is not over by any means, and more coverage is to come. In some ways, it has just started, and this will determine the fate of the Senate for not only now, but years to come. It could very well do so. So, if you did enjoy this video, if you got a value out of it, go ahead and smash the like button from me. Also, if you have not already, if you're not a subscriber yet, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button, hit that big red button. You might want to consider it. Also, hit the notification bell as well. Looking forward to seeing you in the next one.